Hi guys, welcome back to the Shannon Show. Hello if you're new. So today's video is going to be a review of The Midnight Gospel, which is an animated series which dropped today on the 20th of April on Netflix. And considering the date, I think this is a pretty strategic release from Netflix, I must say. So when I first saw the title of this show before clicking on the description, I kind of thought Midnight Gospel, is this going to be some edgy Christian show? Now this show does have a talk about spirituality and Christianity, but I'm not sure if this is going to be screened in any churches, if any of them are still open. So in terms of what this series actually entails, obviously it's an animated series, but we follow the main protagonist, Clarence, who's this sort of alien being who goes through various dimensions / universe stimulators, and in each episode we see him in a different universe talking to different characters on his podcast show, The Midnight Gospel. And it's very trippy, there's a lot going on, there's some random bits in here, but then it's also very deep as well. On the podcast, it's a kind of cartoon / podcasty format, and they do address loads of issues in it, and they do address serious issues. I think it does have a slight satirical comedic tone to it, but they do address some serious issues like trauma, loss, spirituality, religion. And at times I even found myself saying, yeah, I can really connect with that. This is very therapeutic. And while this whole therapeutic podcast is going on, there's just so much going on in the world of the universe stimulators. There's zombies, there's unicorns, there's monsters, there's all sorts going on. There's very bright visuals, there's very trippy visuals, there's random outbursts of singing. So there's a lot going on in each episode. Now in terms of whether I enjoyed it, I did watch this sober. I think for me it was okay, but a part of me did kind of feel like, is this meant to be for people who are celebrating 420? And I'd be really interested to hear from people who watched this while celebrating 420 what your experience was, because half the time I was just like, I wonder what watching this would be like if I was high right now. I've never personally been high before, so I couldn't say if watching this would be better if you were high, but I think maybe it could be. And you know, it being 420 was obviously a strategic release. I think maybe the creators thought it would be funny to create a trippy series and release it on 420 for people who are celebrating. And the reason why I say that is because watching this sober, for me, it started to get a little bit boring. All of the trippy stuff, all of the naff things that were going on, all of the random bits started to lose its appeal pretty early on for me. And I think the fact that it's in a podcasty format as well, you know, the way that my brain is wired, podcasts are automatically background noise, and all of the stuff that was going on in the show wasn't really enough to keep me engaged into actively watching the show. So very quickly it did start to become background noise for me. Because it's a podcasty format, it's just very easy for it to become background noise. You know, you look down on your phone once and then suddenly you're in your phone and you're watching it in the background. I think there definitely is an audience for it in terms of active watchers, but I think it definitely is a particular audience, people that like to watch trippy stuff. I think for me personally, I don't mind trippy stuff, but I think maybe it was the podcasty element that made it a bit uninteresting for me. And I think potentially it will go down better with a more mature audience rather than a younger audience, because the dialogue is very mature. It's very kind of late 20s, 30s, midlife centered. So I'm not really sure if a younger audience is going to be able to connect with it past the trippy visuals. In terms of the actual visuals, it has a very distinct animation style. It personally wasn't my favorite animation style. I think everything was pretty much blended quite well. There was some parts though where it did look a little bit grainy, but for the most part the animation was solid. In terms of whether I would recommend it, I'm really not sure, because I feel like there is an audience for it, but I'm not sure if I can definitively pin it down. I think If you are a younger audience member, I'd probably say skip it, to be honest, or not prioritize it. If you are celebrating 420, I'd probably say, yeah, check it out. But I'd be interested to hear from people who have watched it. How did you find it? Did you love it? Did you not? Did you find it okay? Did you find it entertaining? Did you find it boring? I'd be really interested to know from people who have watched it. I think taking everything into account, I'm going to give it a 2.5 out of 5. I thought it was okay. I think there's definitely an audience for it. And it was good background noise, but I wasn't an active member in it. So that's why it's going to be half marks for me. But for those of you who have watched it, I'd be interested to know what you would rate it out of 5. And for those of you who haven't watched it, is this you are or were excited to something that you are or were interested in watching? Subscribe if you haven't yet, and if you have, don't forget to put the notification bell on so you know when the next review is dropping. Till next time, guys, bye.